Our guest on the Cloud Council is Ben Hunt Davis. He is an Olympic gold medalist rower who went from also ran to winner. And after writing a revered business book, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, about his experience, now applies his insights to businesses and organizations across the country. For anyone listening to this, and we've all been through varying degrees of professional or personal upheaval and change, but when you have reset your goals and you have got a new strategy in place, what happens when there's a wobble? I mean, do you build in, if you like, a strategy to accommodate any potential mishap? So in your case, a piece of broken equipment, someone gets injured, a missed training session. Is there a strategy that's part of that to accommodate expected issues and the unknown unknowns and that world?
So one of the things we talked about was bounce back ability. We wanted to be more resilient, better able to bounce back when stuff went wrong. So a part of that was planning. You know, what are the things that could go wrong? And if they do, what's plan B and C? So we went through loads and loads and loads of different scenario planning, knowing that stuff would go wrong. And part of that scenario planning was, so plan A is fine. If that doesn't work out, sometimes you're just too frustrated, annoyed, pissed off to be able to do plan B. So part of the planning was going, if this goes wrong, how do we personally, emotionally deal with it so we can actually execute on plan B really effectively? Because plan B will only work if we actually get all on top of it and do it properly. Whereas if we're still moping about it going, oh, that didn't work out, then plan B will just be rubbish. So we planned for the kind of operational side of it and also the kind of emotional, psychological side of it. And invariably there were lots of things that went wrong that we didn't plan for. I mean, you know, whether it be illness, injury, the boat breaking, losing certain races, you know, we also had arguments. We had a couple of fights. We all had massive egos. We were bloody minded and obstinate and stubborn, and it wasn't easy.
Let's trade the word fight for conflict, just because not everybody, I hope, gets involved in the kind of altercations that a bunch of young adrenalized athletes might. But if we take a conflict like that, how does one reconcile it? Because yes, you've all got collective goals and you're aiming in that direction, but this is a wonderful catalyst or an excuse, if you like, to go, it's not working. So how do you reconcile that and get back on track?
So we come back to going, really, what's most important? You know, why was it we had the conflict? Is it about, you know, me being right and you being wrong? Is that really what it's about? Is it about, and if so, what's more important? Is it me being right today on whatever date it is that what's most important? Or us collectively getting this black bit of fiberglass and, you know, whatever it is to cross the Olympic line first, which is really most important? And let's kind of all cool down, calm down a bit. You know, tomorrow morning we'll come back and go, okay, so in the calm light of day, what's the most important thing here? Is it being right or wrong, or is it being fast? And actually, let's just try and kind of look at it logically, rebuild where we are. You know, why did we get to this point? What happened yesterday? What are the issues? And going in it, if we both think our ideas are most important, then we can, you know, both continue to argue and not actually do anything. Because if we just keep debating and not making a decision, then we lose.
It won't make the boat go faster.
Make the boat go faster. You know, at some point, one of us has got to go, okay, fine, I'll do what you want. And then actually do it, rather than just say it and then just try and kind of slowly undermine it and not do it anyway. Because that'll help us lose. The only way to give us a chance of winning is to reach some sort of agreement so we can actually take united decision going forward. And if that doesn't work, we come back to it and go, that wasn't the right one. What's the next idea to do?
So I think you're describing what I would say is you have to be humble. If you're trying to achieve something, you can't always be right, and recognizing your own engagement in that process. Sometimes you might be right, but you have to let somebody else lead. And ultimately you might be wrong, and you have got to be a grown up and put your hand up and say, I made a boo-boo. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's coming back to what's really most important. For us, what was most important was winning, not being right. Being right, I mean, you know, who remembers? You know, I haven't been asked to speak at conferences because I made a right decision. it was so understanding for businesses or teams to work out really what's the most important thing here. I've got lots of different priorities. I've got my own, I've got my career, I'm leading my team. I'm also part of the leadership team of this business. And in what order am I going to make decisions? Am I going to put me first? Am I going to put my team first? Or am I going to put the business first? And let's get really clear. Excuse me, let's get really clear on which bit is actually the bit that's most important.
Okay, and just finally, before we reflect back on your success and where it led you, are there any techniques of how to do this? Is this a case of having a whiteboard and drawing up 25 different ideas? Is this an Asana or a Slack or a kind of workflow that everyone builds into? Does it need a quarterback to call the shots on how it's going forward? I mean, what would you advise looking back worked for you and perhaps you could have done differently?
So I think everyone having accountability is important. So rather than going, it's their decision to make, it's their job to make decisions, I think everybody's got to be involved, so there's more engagement. I think very clearly stating and laying out what you're trying to do, so there's no debate about it, and then coming back to it again and again and again and again the whole time to make sure you're measuring yourself or you're making decisions based on what you have agreed is most important, rather than just letting it slip and kind of gently going off in a different direction. And being willing to have the conversation, and I guess agreeing ways of working. How are we actually going to operate when we have a disagreement, when we have different views? How are we going to resolve it? And having a strategy, a plan for resolving different opinions makes it much easier. And it kind of seems pointless when everyone's in agreement around the table, but when you reach disagreements, you then come back to it, and that's when it becomes really useful.
This is our way of working. Well, I know in another episode, we're going to address particularly how those techniques work in business. And because we are largely watched by the technology sector and chief execs, chief data officers, chief information officers, technology works with either a waterfall or an agile approach, usually, and we'll explain those and talk about them in more detail. And what's fascinating is you had a very distinct, singular goal that you worked towards and achieved. And I think it would be good to wrap up just by looking back and reflecting on that success. And do you think any other method would have worked for you? And reflections on, have you taken those skills and those learnings into the rest of your life?
So, our approach, the approach of everybody being accountable to make decisions made it harder, but it made it much, much more effective. For us, having one clear finish line, made it very easy, but having the flexibility to, as we went, go, right, what's the next thing we need to do? Okay, so where are we? What are the next set of decisions? What's the next bit of the plan? Sure, we had a plan laid out beforehand, but invariably you start it and go, oh, right, we need to do something different now. But having the kind of set destination made it much easier. And in different organizations, when the destination isn't as clear, people sometimes use the excuse that business is more complex, so they don't bother setting some sort of destination, some sort of goal that people can aspire to. And that, in my opinion, is always a mistake. Giving people clarity about the direction of travel, about what they're trying to achieve, is absolutely critical.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. However people think of the metaphor of the boat, whether it's a digital migration, a sales target, a recruitment policy, it could be opening a new office in a new sector or region. The boat is interchangeable, but will it make it go faster, better, grow quicker? I think you've explained brilliantly, so thank you. Some of the techniques and tricks and strategies of making that happen. This has been the Cloud Council. We are the destination if you would like to hear from senior business IT leaders who have been there and done that. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.